The first thing on the list there, as you can see, travels with my father. That's not the full term, or the full title. I should say the full title of this show is Jack Whitehall Travels with My Father. But I didn't want to write that whole thing on the board. I think this is good. It's enough, you know. Just like in the movie theaters on the marquee, sometimes they'll make it much abbreviated. Like instead of Men in Black 2, it'll be MIB 2 or whatever. I didn't go that quite extreme, but you know what I mean. Anyway, hello who's ever here. Thanks for being here, whoever's watching. We're gonna get into it right away here. So let's get right into it. This show is, I guess this was the last season that I watched. There's 5 seasons of this show on Netflix. And Jack Whitehall, for people who don't know, he's a British comedian, and he is going all over the world in this series with his father, going in all sorts of travels, all sorts of different situations. And honestly, I do like this show, and I think it provides some laughs. Most of the laughs and the fun of this show comes from obviously the relationship between Jack Whitehall and his father. You got Jack Whitehall, 30-something, young sort of British comedian, and he's sort of a goofball. He's always going for the laugh, obviously. And then his father is much more straight-laced, sort of a conservative British man, very old school. Like they talk about his role model, his biggest role model being Winston Churchill. So maybe that can give you some sort of indication. But some of the funnier things, and they touch on this in the show, but we find out and we see throughout the show how at the beginning, like the first season, it's really hard for for Michael Whitehall, his father, to do anything. He's completely just getting dragged along for this ride with Jack Whitehall. Like he's making him do. Honestly, the first season, it's been a while, so I don't remember exactly, but I think one of the ones was like they had dressed up like clowns or something, and he did not like that. And so it's a lot of like him being displeased with the situation, but they do turn that around in the other seasons. They do stuff that Michael likes and Jack wouldn't like as much. No, but there's some funny bits. Like another good example of the sort of character of this old dad, Michael Whitehall. They're in I think Vietnam, I could be wrong, in one of the first episodes, I think, and again, I could be wrong, but this is the scene. They're in this restaurant, and you know, you think they're gonna get something like authentic from the restaurant, but he asked for a lamb chop, and the way he does it is so funny. He's like, I think I was wondering if they had something in a lamb chop. I don't know if that was a good impersonation, but I tried. And it's just funny because that's not the place. I think they ended up getting it for him somehow, but I don't think it was like on the menu. And again, I could be wrong, but that's how I'm remembering it. Again, this is not the latest season. I can tell you a little more detail, but this latest season. So this one was the final journey. So a big part of this show is obviously, and I've said this more than once, but I'm probably going to keep reiterating, because that's what it's based upon, is this father and son relationship. So that's what all the other seasons have this in common. Obviously, that's all it is. They go in different places, do different things that are a part of the cultures of the countries that they visit. Like, they do all sorts of different stuff. They go to a drag queen competition. They go in all sorts of different shenanigans, shall we say. But but a big, like I said, a big important part of this is the relationship. And I think that's sort of like a sweet part of this is a lot of people, you know, I'm not including myself because I'm very lucky, but a lot of people haven't had a father that they could do something like this, like in the show with, and I think a lot of people recognize it, and you can tell that they recognize, or at least they try to show it in the show. I don't know how genuine this is because it is reality TV. Some of it's got to be scripted, some of it's got to be redone, that kind of thing. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, I think all reality TV is at least a little bit like that. But no, you can tell that they're really happy to be doing these trips together, and that it seems like it anyway. And it's touching, but I don't know. I like this show, but I could talk about some of the things that I maybe don't like about it. You know, they do. So the seasons are condensed. There's like 3 or so episodes. They vary, I think. So maybe you have 2. But there's only a few episodes per season, but each episode is really long. And some of it does drag out. I wonder if they could have split it up into more bite-sized episodes, perhaps. That's pretty nitpicky, but still. But no, there's some funny bits. Like, there's a season where they go to the States. There's a season where they go all in different parts of Europe, I think. There's a season where they can go to Asia, I think. And then this last one, they go around to the UK, where they live, so it makes enough sense. Although I think Jack Whitehall lives in the States, but he grew up in the UK, obviously. So, you know, there's some... And then, again, sort of to talk about Michael Whitehall's sort of conservative characteristics, he sort of says a lot of backhandish or not compliments, just comments about like the Welsh and Scottish people and stuff. So it's like racism towards white people, sort of, but it's still sort of like offensive, and it's like, you know, maybe you shouldn't say those things, but you know, it's not maybe as bad as some racism, and you can tell he doesn't hate anybody, but you can tell he's sort of set in his ways and in these certain beliefs about Scottish people and the Welsh. But yeah, and there's lots of situations that they put Michael Whitehall in that are super uncomfortable for him. You can tell, or at least they make it appear like that in the show, and it's very possible that they're hamming it up and making it more ridiculous than it is, perhaps. But I've already sort of elaborated on that, so I might stop talking about that. But yeah, like there's a few different like crazy sort of sleeping situations that Jack tries to get Michael Whitehall to sleep in these crazy beds. Like this one, well, you know, like hotels in Japan, I think they're in one of those where you just like go on a shelf basically, and you're like just on a little bed on a shelf, and you have a little door to close. I don't think he liked that. And what else? Oh yeah, there was one where you can sleep in a stable right next to a horse, so that was funny. But they actually stayed in that one, so that was interesting. But oh boy, it's frozen. Hello, it's still working. Hello. Okay, we're good. Welcome, who's ever just popping in. But yeah, I'm gonna Wikipedia this actually. And yeah, this is really funny. There's a scene in this newest season where they go to a Gordon Ramsay restaurant, and they see Gordon Ramsay. And this is another point too. For sure, some of this is scripted, because there's a point where they get Gordon Ramsay's reaction, and it really seems not very candid. It seems like it's sort of staged, but you know, it's still kind of funny. And what's really funny about that scene is they get like takeaway, and Jack Whitehall's so embarrassed, like, this is not the kind of restaurant you do this. This is like a fancy place, or whatever. And then like, I get trying to save food, I do. So I actually was okay with that. But then later, she tries to feed it to him like a week later. I wouldn't eat the food a week later. That's a little gross. But I do agree with the saving food. So that for that part, I was like, nah, let her take it. It's fine. That's, save some food. But yeah, and then of course there's a bit with Gordon Ramsay interacting with them. So that's kind of funny. And he's just sort of making fun of Jack Whitehall. And at one point, Michael Whitehall does this, like his dad, Jack Whitehall's dad, does this a few times throughout the series, and is talking about how other people have like real jobs, and like how Gordon Ramsay has a real job, and he doesn't consider what his own son does as a real job, even though he's a talent agent himself who works with actors. But I guess he thinks that Jack is too silly or something. And, there's lots of points like in the car, and you can tell Jack's just like hamming it up a lot of the time in this, and you could argue that it's kind of annoying, but part of the fun is sort of the reaction of what Michael will do when Jack Whitehall gives him a wasabi peanut, and he's like, oh, it's the worst thing I've ever had in my life, or something like that. Or he's like, he hurt his foot because a horse stepped on it, so in the car he takes his sock off and he has like his foot and his dad's face, and of course he doesn't like that. But no, where was I going with this? Back to the scene where they're in the Ramsay restaurant. Yeah, he's making fun of Jack for not having a real job, sort of. And you say, what, I should get a real job like Gordon Ramsay? He's just a TikToker. And Gordon Ramsay's like, you little motherfucker. Or something like that right away. And that was kind of funny. But, the show is not perfect. Like any reality TV, there's very few, documentary shows maybe, but I guess that's the same thing as reality TV, sort of. So some reality TV is really good, but the kind that I'm talking about is sort of trash. This would be somewhere in the middle for me. It's like pretty dumb, but it's also like I would say, and I'm sorry for any fans of the Kardashians out there, but I feel like maybe this is a little smarter than the Kardashians, just a little bit, but I don't know, it's just an opinion also. So if you really like the Kardashians, that's allowed. You're allowed to enjoy that show. But I'm just saying that's where I would put this, like in the middle somewhere. So I'm going to look up Jack Whitehall Travels with My Father on Wikipedia. And yeah, has anyone seen this or like seen it on Netflix and been like, maybe I should watch that, but you didn't watch it or something? Because it's on that Netflix. And the last season, like I said, is on. And I'm glad how they ended it. They did a clip show in a good way. They did it the last episode. I hate when they do clip shows like in the middle of a series and they're like, remember all this shit that you just saw? But this was good because I forgot most of it. But at the same time, some of the clips they shown like were from the season that just played. It's like you could have used clips just from the other seasons. I think would have been better, just to refresh the memories. So that's another note, sort of negatively towards it, but relatively mild. I did still enjoy this show. Jack Whitehall Travels with My Father. We're looking it up on Wikipedia, one step at a time here. It must have been relatively successful to get 5 seasons, and they ended by themselves. They didn't end because they were made to, or that's what it seems like. Anyway, here we go. Oh, and enabled night mode on Google. I didn't mean to, but it looks fine. So let's continue. Yes. Jack Whitehall Travels with My Father is a travel documentary / road trip comedy television series that debuted on Netflix. The show is presented by comedian Jack Whitehall and his father, Michael Whitehall. The show covers the pair's travels to various places around the world, encountering silly, and awkward situations. Well put, Wikipedia. The first series consisted of 6 episodes. Oh wow. I didn't realize it had that many, but I guess it did. I feel like they thought that maybe the first one was going to be the last one, but then it did well, so they did a bunch more. That's what I think happened. It covers the pair's travels of Southeast Asia, right, on a popular gap year route, and involves them traveling through Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. The series was renewed for a second series, and that was filmed in Eastern Europe. And then they went to the States for the 3rd season. And then the 4th season was in Australia. And now this final season was in the UK. But yeah, I enjoyed this. That's pretty much all the Wikipedia says. Well, maybe a little bit more, but not much. References. Oh, it's just the references where they got the information to put on Wikipedia. That's not interesting. So it ran 5 seasons, 18 episodes. But each episode's really long. That doesn't sound like many episodes for 5 seasons, but considering the length of the episode, that is pretty good. But yeah, welcome folks. This is the first review. We're just getting into it. Thanks for watching. I'm trying to think of other funny shit that happened in the show that I could talk about. There's some good bits in this. In this latest season, like in the clip show, oh, I forget the character's name, but they go to, well, to my knowledge, I think they were in LA for this one. And again, if I'm getting this wrong, I'm terrible with places and shit. So if I'm getting into some of the details wrong, I apologize. But to my recollection, it was in LA, and it was in sort of the hood area. Again, if I'm getting any of this wrong, I'm sorry, but they had a character, I forget who he was, but he kept calling Michael Whitehall an OG, and I guess he thought that it meant like an old person, and he's like, oh, well, I liked him, but I didn't really want to be called an old fucker. I know I'm an old fucker, or something like that. So that was kind of funny, but then of course he was like, oh well, that didn't mean that. It means original gangster, and it was a compliment. So that was cool. And then another sort of sad thing, and again I feel bad because I forget that man's name, but he passed away and they did a toast to him. But yeah, that's sad. Rest in peace. Again, I'm sorry, I forget your name. But lots of different people in this show. Anyway, this one was called The Final Journey, so they better not do any more. They did that sort of thing with the Friday the 13th series. They had the 4th one be the final chapter, and we all know how that fucking went. They made like 7 more or whatever. But yeah, this show is it was pretty fun, and I laughed pretty hard at some of the parts. Mainly, like I said, the reactions of the father are what holds this thing together, and are really funny. Some of the jokes that Jack Whitehall throws down are funny too, but I would probably say the highlights are, yes, introducing uncomfortable situations to Michael Whitehall. So again, I'm not going to dwell on this show too much. I think I've said mainly what I want to about it. I'm probably going to go ahead with the reviews. And maybe if we get the reviews done earlier than 7, I can start with some guitar. Because we might be doing full on freestyle for a long time. So maybe we'll fit in a little bit of a guitar time. But that being said, yeah, I think I'm going to end this review for this particular title. Jack Whitehall Travels with My Father. And I liked it, but I didn't... I don't love it. It's still kind of dumb reality TV, but it's still kind of fun. I laughed like pretty hard at a lot of the parts, to give it credit for that. But yeah, and in that final episode, I wish they would have used more clips from the older seasons instead of the season we just watched. Because I just watched that, I'd refresh my memory more with the older seasons. But let us rate this. Here we go. I'm gonna put on a song while I rate it, or a beat, if you will. Here is a beat from Turn Up Music SK. Oh yes.
Hey, Rob, shut the fuck up!
$7.5. All right.